welcome to Transfer Talk. Arsenal are dealt a major blow with Gabriel Jesus set to be out for a long time. Will Arsenal sign a striker? And relief for Premier League clubs who all avoid PSR charges. Pep Guardiola is trying to sign at least 3 players, 2 of them defenders. Will have the latest on that to come. Tottenham are in the market for a forward. We'll hear from Ange Postecoglou this afternoon. And Marcus Rashford is still a Manchester United player. Will he get his move away? Good afternoon to you at home, to James Savundra, Dan Bardell and Dave Reed. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta wouldn't be drawn on the length of time Gabriel Jesus could be out for. The forward suffered a suspected ACL injury in the FA Cup defeat to Manchester United on Sunday.
Yeah, we know more now, and it's not looking good at all. But we need to review one more specialist, so probably we'll have the total information this afternoon. I don't want to confirm anything again till we have the final report this afternoon, and I think it's the doctor's job to do that. But yeah, we were very worried straight away after the game, and we are very worried today.
So I don't want to be a pessimist, but there's a chance it could be a season-ending injury.
Well, again, let's wait here this afternoon.
Obviously, with this injury to Jesus, potentially quite serious, does that change your thinking about the transfer window?
We are actively looking in the market to improve the squad, and that's been since day one. We will be naive not to do that, because it's an opportunity always to evolve the team, to improve the squad, and especially with the circumstances that we have. So yes, we are looking and we are trying, and let's see what we are able to do.
Mikel Arteta talking there. Dan, I'm going to start with you. Suspected ACL injury. We know players likely to miss large periods of time. How big of a blow is this, not just for Gabriel Jesus, but for Arsenal as well?
Yeah, obviously, first off, for the player, it's bad news. Just when he's started to get back into some form, he's been in the goals recently, got himself back in the team, and now just as he'll feel he's got himself going, potentially his season's over. So sad news for the player. From an Arsenal perspective, it feels pretty big to me. It feels like something that might end up shaping their January, because whereas before maybe they were just looking for opportunities like they have done previously in Januaries with Jorginho and Trossard, for example, a few Januaries ago, it now feels like they might need to move away from opportunistic signings, and that this is now a necessity. This is something that they have to do, because there's no doubt with injuries, and maybe even without the injuries, they're short in the forward positions. They've only got Havertz in the squad that can play centre forward. They've let players go in the summer that can play in that position. It feels now that, they've got 2 weeks here. It's not a case of, if something comes up, that they need something to come up now, Arsenal, because they are short. And if they want to maintain the challenges on all fronts, the Champions League, the Premier League, possibly still the Carabao Cup, if they can turn the second leg around, they're going to need another forward option, because there's a long way to go yet in this season.
Yeah, so Jesus out for a while. Dave, how Arsenal fans would love for one of these players to be still at the club.
I know. Arsenal have had some iconic forwards down the years, and we wanted to pick out a few of them for you this afternoon. All of these players you see here have won major honours at the club, and all brought something a little bit different as well to the Arsenal teams that they played in. We've got, deep-lying forwards here. We've got creative players. We've got penalty box strikers. We've got off-the-shoulder players. We've got physicality as well amongst the players on the video wall here. Front-line pace. Most of all, though, for Arsenal supporters, they loved the lethal finishing that these players brought to the Arsenal front line. So what about the options Mikel Arteta has at his disposal now? Well, Gabriel Jesus has suffered that serious knee injury. We expect full confirmation of that this afternoon. And Bukayo Saka is out until at least March, we think. It leaves Arsenal with Kai Havertz, Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard as the forward options for the manager.
Yeah, James, they let go. Dan sort of vaguely mentioned it earlier. They let go of attacking players in the summer. I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, and they would never have known that Saka was going to be out for a long time and this was going to happen to Jesus. But do you think Arsenal had enough forward options in the summer?
Well, it's important to reflect on what they did in the summer with Emile Smith-Rowe and Eddie Nketiah leaving the club for serious money, it must be said, and pure profit, because they're academy graduates, so that helped them massively from a business point of view and in terms of profit and sustainability. Fabio Vieira and Reece Nelson both went out on loan as well. All 4 of those players didn't get enough minutes last season, so it was understandable for Arsenal to move those players on. But they didn't really make any replacements in that forward area. Mikel Merino was the most advanced signing in terms of players up the pitch that they brought in, but he's a number 8. So they've not really strengthened that area of the pitch, the front line, for 3 or 4 years, really. When you look at what they've done, they've spent £140 million on 6 forwards over the last 5 years, compared to nearly £300 million on 16 defenders and goalkeepers over the course of Arteta's tenure. You can understand what they've done, and they've really been rewarded in terms of their foundations being really strong. Arsenal have the best defence in the Premier League by some distance. Yes, they've been shipping the odd goal in recent matches, but overall, we saw last season, we've seen this season, that is a really strong foundation they have. The issue is, if Saka, and he's unfit at the moment, Martinelli and Ødegaard aren't firing and almost overperforming in front of goal, that's when they're really going to struggle, and that's when they are reliant on the set pieces. I guess the encouraging sign is that they have been creating chances in the last 2 matches. 20-odd shots against Newcastle, 20-odd shots against Manchester United, but they're missing that person to tuck away those chances. And that is why they're in a situation where they really need to act in this window if they're to save their season, you think.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to be a big month for Arsenal. Now, Sky Germany are reporting that Borussia Dortmund are exploring a deal to sign Arsenal's Alexander Zinchenko. There has been no formal approach. Sky Germany also believe Arsenal are open to allowing him to leave on loan with an obligation to buy of approximately £16.8 million. I mean, Zinchenko's not getting that much game time under Arteta, Dan. They would be getting less or just slightly more than half of what they paid for him when they bought him from Manchester City. Do you feel like this has worked out, Zinchenko to Arsenal?
I think he's probably served his purpose at this point. Him and Jesus were brought in at a time when Arsenal, I think, had just finished 5th in the Premier League, didn't have Champions League football, and these were 2 players that were seen to take Arsenal back into the Champions League. What actually ended up happening, without these 2 probably being important players for Arsenal, they became a title-challenging team for the last couple of years, and it almost moved on from those 2 players a little bit. Those 2 players were no longer what they really required to get themselves to that next level now, which then the next level became actually winning the Premier League. So I think there'll be intangible things that both have offered in terms of being in the dressing room, but I think this season in particular, Miles Lewis-Skelly's development in recent months has hurt Zinchenko. Arsenal have got a lot of players that they can put into that left-back position within their squad. So he's kind of surplus to requirements at this current time, and the development of the youngster is probably more important to Arsenal at this point than a player that isn't going to be seen as being good enough over the next year or 2. So I think, you know, for the fee they paid, the fee that they're going to get back for him, I don't think it's a transfer failure. I just think Arsenal have moved on to a level above that player now.
Right, we've got some sad news to bring you, and that's Manchester City have announced the passing of former captain and manager Tony Book, aged 90. Book helped City win the league in 1967-98 season, the FA Cup the following year, and a League Cup, European Cup, Winners' Cup double in 1970. He was the FWA Footballer of the Year back in 1969, and then later won the League Cup as City manager in 1976. The right-back also played for Plymouth, Toronto City, Bath City and Frome Town. Manchester City have said this in a statement. It is with huge sadness and the heaviest of hearts that we announce the passing of former Manchester City captain and manager Tony Book, aged 90, a true club legend in every sense of the word. Tony made 315 appearances for City in total between 1966 and 1974, scoring 5 goals. Right, Manchester City have reached an agreement in principle with Palmeiras for Vitor Reis. It's worth a fixed fee of £29.4 million. He is the second centre-back set to move to the club this window after Abdulkadir Kushanov, who is due in the UK to complete a £33.5 million transfer from Lens. Right, James, Abdulkadir Kushanov, tell us a little bit about this deal.
Well, he's just 20 years of age, but he has really impressed with Lens at the start of this season. But it's going to be a lot to ask of him to play a significant role in saving Manchester City's season. You'd think what City are doing here is seeing there's a number of different clubs interested across Europe, and they're thinking, let's get him now before anybody else gets to him. And also avoid potentially paying more in the summer if he continues to impress in France, and to avoid any potential bidding war. So I think this is definitely one for the future. One thing we know, he'll be the first Uzbekistan international to play in the Premier League, so that'll be a pub quiz question in years to come, I'm sure. But he's definitely emerged as one of the most promising young centre-backs in Europe. He's been trapped by a number of different clubs. So I think this is a case of City just trying to get in there early. Potentially we'll see him feature a bit more next season, because we know City are going through a bit of a rebrand. They're having to evolve this side now. And so he's somebody who City will hope will play a key part in that. Pep didn't want to speak about it at all yesterday during his press conference, as hard as Ben Ransom, our reporter, tried at his pre-match press conference yesterday. But he is due in the UK to complete a deal which will be worth around £33.5 million.
Yeah, so he's slightly unknown, as is Vitor Reis from Palmeiras, Dave. Just first of all, what do we know about him?
Another young player, only turned 19 a couple of days ago. Centre-back, he's also played a little bit at right-back as well. We had Tim Vickery on this show last week, actually, who kind of said, look, he needs to fill out a little bit. I think physicality might be a struggle initially, if and when he arrives in the Premier League. And remember, this is a player who's only really played 20-odd senior games for his club. But, he does come from a team that has good pedigree. And they've also had a relationship with Manchester City in the past. Gabriel Jesus came from Palmeiras to Manchester City. And when you look at the players who they've let go, Endrick has gone to Real Madrid from Palmeiras. They're going to be losing Willian Esteval to Chelsea in the summer, and lots of talk about him. So this is a club that has produced top quality players, and from Manchester City's point of view, they hope that this youngster is the next cab off the rank, if you like. And it feels a little bit like a player for the future, so it's about how Manchester City decide to integrate him, how quickly that can happen.
Yeah, bolstering their defence, but also, Dan, looking to bolster their attack as well, and going for arguably the Bundesliga's best player this season.
Yeah, I got the easier player to talk about because I didn't go for a coffee break midway through our preparation.
He's thrown you right under the bus there.
I think what you say, it's not even arguably at the moment. He is the best player in the Bundesliga. I'll put my stat man Dan hat on. He's 16 appearances, 14 goals, 7 assists. So he's the joint top assister in the Bundesliga, and second top scorer behind only Harry Kane, only one behind Harry Kane, obviously playing for Frankfurt, who are third in the league at the moment. Just a player that can do a little bit of everything, probably play all across the front line. He's mainly played through the middle, but can play from the left as well. He's scored all kinds of goals this season, right foot, left foot, free kicks. He's got great technique, can run in behind, can drop short when needed as well. And, 6 months on, or 6 months or so on, looks like that Julian Alvarez replacement within the squad, and someone that can perhaps take the burden off Haaland to score the goals for Manchester City. Obviously, Rodri used to pop up with key goals. Haaland hasn't been as prolific this season, so they haven't been as prolific in front of goal as they would have liked so far this season, Manchester City. So Marmoush will really, really help, because quite simply he's been electric so far this season, almost come from nowhere. But when you watch him play, he's on the pitch.
Does he start for City though?
Well, I think Man City at the moment, they're looking to try and develop into a new era at the moment. We look at the players they're signing, perhaps some of the older players that they might try and phase out over the next 12 months. I think they've been a little bit unfortunate, because I think Foden was probably earmarked for that number 10 position. He's suffered for form since the Euros, has come back and hasn't been the same as last season. Obviously, they've lost Alvarez. De Bruyne is slowing down ever so slightly and has been injured a lot as well. So I think they've just had problems in the forward positions. They've had injuries as well, so they're having to change. Savinho's only just suddenly starting to play now, get some rhythm, because he's in the team and he's fit and he's playing every week. But a lot of the attacking players at City haven't had that this season. So I think he'll come in and honestly really make an impact, because, as I said earlier, he's so good when you watch him this season. Electric is exactly the right word to describe him.
Yeah, City being very active in this transfer window so far. Right, we have loads to come. We're heading to the Midlands shortly as Aston Villa look to sign Donyell Malen. And will Evan Ferguson be allowed to leave Brighton?
It was like a noise. I just did that.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did not realise I'd done it, David. Thank you. Thank you for alerting me.
Oh, there should one sec. It's meant to be like that. Is that okay? Yeah. That's okay. That is okay. Welcome back. Let's get to Aston Villa. Ben Ransom will be speaking to Unai Emery later this afternoon, but Ben joins us now. Ben, what's the latest with Villa's pursuit of Donyell Malen then?
Yeah, good afternoon from Aston Villa. As far as Malen goes, I think he's a player that Villa clearly like and they're closing in on. Not had any confirmation other than a fee of just over £20 million has been agreed with Borussia Dortmund to bring him here, and that the player is keen on the move. And it's a move that appears to make sense, seems like a decent capture for Aston Villa in this window. We know they've been on the lookout for versatile forward, someone that can play wide but also centrally when required. You'll remember Malen from his time at the Euros playing for the Netherlands. He knows Ian Maatsen from the national squad already, and obviously the pair played together at Borussia Dortmund as well last season. You might remember him scoring a couple of goals against Romania in the summer. He started in the game against England as well. So with 18 months left on his contract, I think he feels as though he wants to be playing more football, certainly starting more games. Aston Villa have offered him that route, and it appears as though that deal is still close. So it'll be really interesting to hear whether Unai Emery has an update on that situation when I speak to him in an hour or so's time.
Ben, could there be any other transfer activity going on at Villa Park, do you think?
Well, you've got the Aston Villa fan club in the studio with you, so maybe this is one for the panel rather than me. But certainly as far as incomings are concerned, defensive options is something where they would like to strengthen. However, it seems as though it's going to be contingent on whether Diego Carlos leaves. Now, there was a lot of speculation, of course, about Diego Carlos going in the summer. That never happened. He has been in and around the first team squad, but more recently he slipped down the pecking order, started last 3 of the last 9 in the Premier League, and a player that Villa certainly deemed surplus to requirements. So talks ongoing with Fenerbahce about that sale. If it does go through, then Villa on the lookout for a defender in the mould of Ezri Konsa, someone that can play at centre-half and also at right-back as well when required. A couple of names being linked today. Loic Barda from Sevilla, he's highly rated. And also Yasin Özkan, a young Turkish defender who's more of a left-sided player. Those two names have certainly started to appear in the last 24 hours. So whether Unai Emery has any update on them. And we're still waiting to see what happens with Jaden Philogene. We know that a fee's been agreed with Ipswich for around £20 million. Remember, boyhood Villa player brought back to the club from Hull when they matched Ipswich's offer in the summer. He's not really had the impact here that Unai Emery would like. So it looks as though he will be on his way to Ipswich. But we know after that fee's been agreed, we're still waiting for any further developments on that. Louis Barry also is back here at Aston Villa. What a start to the season he's had at Stockport. 16 goals in all competitions, deemed too good already for League One. So he's been recalled by Aston Villa. He's going to stay in and around the squad for the next week or two, but do not rule out a loan move because plenty of clubs in the Championship and Celtic as well very closely monitoring his situation here.
Thank you very much, Ben. Dan, Donyell Malen looks like it's edging closer and closer to becoming a Villa player. Excited about that?
Yeah, I think he will be Moussa Diaby's replacement, who Villa obviously let go in the summer window for a big fee to Saudi Arabia. I think Philogene initially would have been looked at as his replacement, but as time's gone on, it's clear that he's not quite ready, has probably missed a step in his development, and going from the Championship to a team that's playing Champions League football has just been a little bit too much of a jump for him, and he'll leave and go to Ipswich and probably do well, because I think that probably is the logical next step for him. Malen comes in, a player with Champions League pedigree, a player with international pedigree as well. I think Villa at times have lacked a bit of pace in the side. I think they've lacked an alternative to Leon Bailey when he's been off form or unfit as well. So I think he'll take the load off Leon Bailey more than anything. I would expect Malen to play from the right-hand side or as the number 10 in the mould that Diaby did last season. He's adept with both feet as well, so he offers that variety. And as I say, just that raw pace and power to go with it. It's a signing for £20-ish million and they're letting Philogene go for a similar fee. I think it makes Villa's squad stronger, I would say.
Did Villa need signings this window, Dave? Do you think someone like Donyell Malen was a necessity, and perhaps any more signings they make? Was it vital they did that?
Not necessarily vital, but I think they did need a little bit of help in different departments in the forward line and then at the back. But these were positions and players that Villa have been looking at for a while, and certainly they were looking at another forward player in the summer, and certainly they were looking at a kind of centre-back, right-back player in the summer as well, and it was only because of PSR that they were unable to get something done at the end of the window to do that centre-back, right-back position. So Villa are carrying on a little bit in terms of long-term targets and positions that they've been looking at. And Villa have had success in January windows. You only have to look back to last year and Morgan Rogers coming in, which now looks like an absolute bargain basement deal coming from Middlesbrough. Kostan Nedeljkovic came in, who has had a relatively good impact for his age, might end up going out on loan this month. And then the January window before that was John Duran coming in.
Moreno was
and Alex Moreno, who had a really good end to the season on that first season that Unai Emery was in charge. So it's a window that actually Villa have had a very good recent track record in. They'll be hoping to carry that on this time round.
And what impact do you think it could have then on Villa's season? Because they're not out of the race for the top four yet. They're still definitely there and they're going well in the Champions League as well.
Well, as the guys saying there, hopefully we'll have a similar impact to other players that Aston Villa have signed in January windows. Morgan Rogers scored 3 really important goals for Aston Villa at the back end of last season, which helped them reach the Champions League spot. So if he can make an impact, that'd be brilliant. And that's what Unai Emery will be hoping for. I think when you read reports about his time at Borussia Dortmund, he played a really key role in helping them reach the Champions League final last season, but there has been a problem when it comes to his consistency as well. So under a manager like Unai Emery, hopefully he'll be able to get the best out of him on a consistent basis, because Leon Bailey has struggled a bit this season for form, hasn't he? We saw last season, at the stage of last season, his goal per minute and assist per minute ratio was higher than most players in the Premier League at that time, but we've not seen that at the start of this season. I know Morgan Rogers has been so important, but hopefully this will be a player that maybe takes the goal-scoring burden away from the likes of Watkins, Duran and Rogers, because Rogers has been sensational this season. If he can help Rogers with those goals and Watkins, or whether it's going to be Duran, I know there's a debate to be had there, then that will definitely help Villa get to where they want to be. They're only 4 points off Champions League spots, so there's a real opportunity they can do something special again this season.
There is. Right, we have a little bit of breaking news to bring you, and that is that Nottingham Forest will not allow Taiwo Awoniyi to leave the City ground this month unless they have a new striker to replace him. Now, West Ham have Awoniyi on their list of possible forward targets. Obviously, West Ham desperately need a striker, but they have yet to make an approach. So Forest won't let Awoniyi leave unless they have a striker to replace him. James, I'm going to come to you on this because we spoke about Awoniyi on Good Morning Transfers, and you thought this would be the case, wouldn't you? Forest were never going to let him go as a backup to Chris Wood, that's played a lot this season as well, unless they can get a replacement.
Yeah, ultimately he's only played 13 matches in terms of substitute appearances. He's only started 2 matches, so 15 appearances in all in the Premier League. But the minutes have been limited. But ultimately, if something happens to Chris Wood, then they're going to want him to step in and play minutes. And you wondered, Chris Wood has been sensational this season, but if he breaks down, you've got a ready-made replacement there in Awoniyi. I know they're very different players, but we saw what he did in his first season at Nottingham Forest. He scored really vital goals in their first season back in the Premier League, which ultimately kept them in the division. So he's not been featuring much at all. It's been the odd minute here or there coming off the bench right at the end of matches. But I did feel that was going to be the case. If he was to leave, then they'd want a replacement in it. And you wonder at this point in time, do Forest just wait till the summer to do any business if they're to bring in another player? As for West Ham, they definitely, it feels like they need somebody. Nicholas Füllkrug was so impressive at the Euros, wasn't he? And there was a lot of hope that he'd finally be the man. There's been a curse with West Ham when it comes to strikers over the course of the last 10, 15 years. Unfortunately, Füllkrug's got these injuries already. We know Antonio will probably be out for the rest of the season, if not more. Bowen's out injured. Somerville will probably miss the game tonight. And Graham Potter says it's logical they need to sign a striker in this window. He'd be a great option, but I don't think at this moment in time it's going to work. You're almost waiting for that domino effect, aren't you? The player we're about to talk about now is probably a good example of that, but you're almost waiting for that domino effect when it comes to strikers. So the first one moves, it kind of sets the chain off, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, from one striker to another, because we can get the latest on the future of Brighton's Evan Ferguson now. The 20-year-old striker has been linked with a loan move to West Ham. This is what Fabian Herzler had to say.
He proved why he's here and playing for Brighton. He's a player that comes from the youth academy, and that's also the way from the club. And like I said, again, we will negotiate the same with Evan. What is important for him? What is important for his development? Where can he improve the best? And then we will make a decision together.
Could it be tough to send him? If the decision is to send them on loan, could it be tough to send them to another Premier League club? Would it?
Yeah, I think this decision is should be chosen what's the best for the player and for the club. And in the end, we had sent Buonanotte, for example, to Leicester, and we know that the Premier League is a very good league to improve, because it's tough, it's intense, and especially for young players, it's the perfect environment to adapt. And in the end, they want to play for Brighton, and we want that they play for Brighton. So I think when they improve in the environment or in the league where we are also playing, it's always very helpful. So that's why I'm not thinking about making the other teams better. It's more about what is the best for the player.
Yeah, I wonder if Evan Ferguson will be on the move this January. Just 20 years old, Dave. I feel like there's such a player in there for Evan Ferguson, but he needs to go and play football. Where do you think would be best for him?
Well, I think for him it's a prime example where he came almost to the attention of everyone at the same time, really, with some really good performances. And then it just shows that development of these young players, it's not linear. You know, you can have up and down months and sometimes seasons as young players. And it feels like he is a little bit further down the pecking order at Brighton than he would like. And at this stage, I think from his point of view, he would want to go and play games. So when you're looking for teams who need strikers, West Ham is one that springs to mind. And then Brighton have got to take into account where they're loaning him to. I know they're always very careful about the clubs that they loan them to. What kind of football does the loaning club play? Does it fit with the development of the player? And when the player comes back, is he going to be better than the player that they let go? So there's lots of different moving parts in this. And for Evan Ferguson, I think he wants to go and play football.
With the West Ham link, it's Graham Potter, obviously now in charge, and that is probably a big bonus potentially if he does go there. And you would like to think that Graham Potter will be playing the football that Evan Ferguson wants to play and that Fabian Hürzeler wants Evan Ferguson to play.
Yeah, Ferguson didn't massively break through under Potter, but there'll be a relationship there, and you'd think, you know, Brighton and Potter are on decent terms. You'd think there'd be an element of trust there to let him go and play under Potter. There's only really two teams I can see that he would fit into at the moment, because there's only really two teams at kind of the level I would say he needs, Everton or West Ham, that need a striker. But Everton have already got two domestic loans, so it would rely on one of those being cancelled for them to be able to get it in. So at the moment, you would say West Ham with Potter, who we will already know, have got a free run at him, and you would say as well that's a good move for both parties.
Yeah, definitely. Right, next up, we will bring you Ange Postecoglou's news conference. Will they sign a forward this month?
How's the team news after that plastic pitch Sunday and everyone else?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it takes a fair bit out of the players, so we've had to do some extra recovery.
Welcome back to Transfer Talk. Manchester United are expecting to receive a formal approach from AC Milan for Marcus Rashford. James, I don't know if messy is the right word, but I think for both parties it's best if Marcus Rashford does go. But why do you think it's got like this?
Well, things started so well for Marcus Rashford under Ruben Amorim. He scored in the first 90 seconds of the Amorim reign away at Ipswich, and you thought maybe he would be the number 9 for Manchester United because we know the system that Amorim plays and that you need to have that striker. And it looked like initially Rashford would get the nod over Zirkzee and Højlund, but things unravelled really quickly. He scored 2 goals against Everton, but he was really poor in the Europa League away from home against Victoria Pilsen. We've not seen him since then. He's not lived up to the standards that Ruben Amorim expects. I think for that to happen within weeks of a new manager coming in does reflect really poorly on Rashford. Of course, he's been the poster boy for United over the course of the last 9 years since he made his debut. It's been a really challenging season and a really challenging period for Manchester United, and he's shouldered much of the focus and expectations. So that clearly has been a heavy burden he's had to carry. So it's not just Marcus Rashford not performing. He's not solely to blame for this because the culture at Manchester United clearly hasn't been right for a number of seasons, and he's shouldered so much of the responsibility and expectation being that homegrown player. But the fact is, Amorim said he needs to want it. He needs to want it really, really bad. And we saw the players the weekend away at the Emirates for 60 minutes, over an hour. They held on with 10 men. Those players showed a real willingness to run for each other, and that's sadly not something that Marcus Rashford has been willing to do for Manchester United over a long period of time across a number of different managerial reigns. And for that reason, it doesn't feel like he's necessarily the right fit either in terms of where he is mentally right now, where he is with his game right now, and also because of his positioning. It's not clear where he will fit into this Manchester United system. So he's had some incredible moments in a Manchester United shirt. There's been some low points as well. We need to remember how good Marcus Rashford has been at times, but now probably is the time for him to move on for his own sake, and for Manchester United it's time to move on to this new era. Ruben Amorim picking players that he believes and players he can trust in, and Rashford isn't one of those players.
Yeah, well, Sky in Italy are reporting that Napoli are interested in Alejandro Garnacho. I mean, Dave, out of all the players, you know, we know that effectively every player is up for sale at Manchester United, but should Garnacho be one of the players that United should be desperately holding on to?
I think it depends. He's another player, actually, that's been left out of Manchester United squads this season by Ruben Amorim. You think of the Manchester derby. I think Garnacho is viewed as one of the best young wingers in Europe. It's a case for him as how does he fit into what Ruben Amorim is trying to do at Manchester United? How does he fit into that system? Does he want to play wing-back? Does he want to play as one of the wide forwards or inside forwards? How is his game going to develop under Ruben Amorim? And I think you're right insofar as there's no player at Manchester United that is untouchable. I think in an ideal world, you wouldn't be selling Garnacho, you wouldn't be selling Kobbie Mainoo either. So from United's point of view, Garnacho is one that you would think they would be able to mould and develop, and he could become a key part of that Manchester United forward line for, you know, the next 5 years at least. So from United's point of view, I think, yeah, no player's untouchable, but actually, ideally, you would like to keep hold of him.
Yeah, definitely. Right, well, Tottenham strengthen this window. We can hear from their manager, Ange Postecoglou, now.
How's the team news after that plastic pitch Sunday and everyone else?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, it takes a fair bit out of the players, so we've had to do some extra recovery. You know, we're training until this afternoon, give the boys a good chance to recover, because pitch takes a bit out of you. The only one who picked up an injury was Timo. He picked up a hamstring injury. We're just waiting on the results of that scan. And then everyone else sort of, like I said, apart from being sore, pulled through okay. And in terms of incoming, Richie is available.
Mick Arteta's mentioned a few injuries for them this morning, but it's been a real tough few months in terms of injuries here. Are we at a stage now, special as this game is, let's just play it? There's no good or bad time to play it. Let's just get this great game underway.
Well, you've got no choice. That's the fixture. So, you've got to accept it. And, like we've been in a situation for quite a while now. And obviously, hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of players coming back. Like I said, Richie, and it's good for Mikey to get an hour on the weekend, whenever it was. Lost track of days. But Situation is what it is. But big game tomorrow night, and big game for the club, big game for our season, big game for our supporters. So looking forward to it.
Mentioning Richie, obviously you said as well you need to look after him. It's been a while. Where are you in terms of bringing in another forward? Obviously that's the key. You've mentioned how far down the line are Spurs in that?
Look, it's hard to say. Like most other clubs, it's January is a difficult month to kind of really have any certainty about anything. Like I said, when there's a lot of things that need to come together, but I think I said last week that the club's working really hard in that area, and if there are any developments, we'll let everyone know.
Because of the injuries, is it closed door on outgoings, or if an opportunity arises, there's talk about Napoli potentially interested in Timo Werner, but with the injuries, is it a closed shop?
Yeah, we can't afford to let anyone go at the moment. I mean, look, obviously some of the young players, Alfie Dorrington went out on loan, and probably looks similar for young Will as well, because he hasn't really played a lot. But aside from that, we're looking at incomings if anything happens.
Why, you get a late Christmas present at Tamworth, I saw, just as you were walking in. That's nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, they got me a nice mug, coffee mug with my face and Andy's face on it. Couple of handsome blokes. I can look at that and remember that game fondly. Yeah, thank you. Good people.
Cheers, Ange.
Hi, Ange. Your fourth North London derby. Would you say the rivalry has intensified for you during your time here?
Look, I felt it was intense, from the moment I arrived. But, at the same time, I've never tried to be disingenuous about this stuff and say, this means the world to me when I've literally just arrived. I mean, but you get the context of the game and what it means to the club and what it means to the supporters, and also what it means for our season. So from that perspective, right from the first time we played them, I was well aware. I mean, a bit like being up in Glasgow, you're well aware of what it means, and you're well aware of the ramifications of both the positive and the negative. So I've been sort of big on it from the first game. Like I said, this year is as big as they ever come, especially for us in our season. We need to start winning games in the league, and no better place to start.
On that note, what could a win do for your season? Do you think it could be a turning point?
Yeah, look, I don't like sort of framing games in terms of turning point, because then you've got to, then we could go up to Everton and face David on the weekend. So there's no easy games, but in the position we're in at the league at the moment, irrespective of turning points or not, we need to start winning games and moving up the table. And whilst it's a massive challenge tomorrow night, like I said, there's an opportunity for us to do that.
Just finally on Kinski, he's the first Tottenham keeper in 100 years to keep 2 clean sheets in his first 2 games. Not sure if you knew that.
Okay, well, no, I didn't know.
Thanks to the stats man. It was the stats man that told me that.
Okay, good.
Obviously a huge test for him against Arsenal. How involved are you with him, or do you sort of leave it to the goalkeeping coach?
No, look, I as involved as anyone else. And to be fair, they've all been big games for different reasons for him. Obviously the Liverpool game goes without saying, but it was a hell of a challenge for him up in Tamworth too, especially with the way they play and their ability to sort of put pressure on goalkeepers up there. I thought he handled it so well, and helped us kind of nullify what was a big sort of threat from them. So, he's handled everything really well. I haven't spent any extra time with him. Birchie obviously has. And, part of the process is, because it has been a bit of a whirlwind, is to make sure he's kind of settled as well, even off the field, because, he's moved to a different country and, just trying to sort of manage, sort of everything around him as well is probably just as equally as important. But so far, he's been really good at embracing the challenge we've thrown him, and I'm sure he's looking forward to tomorrow as well. Thank you.
Well, that was Ange Postecoglou. Coming up, we'll hear from Wolves head coach Vitor Pereira. Plus, will Chelsea bring it forward? Welcome back to Transfer Talk. We can now hear from Wolves head coach Vitor Pereira.
You mentioned after Bristol City about Totti, Nelson Semedo and Craig Dawson. You didn't think they would be available for Newcastle. Is that still true? Will any of them make the trip?
Nelson, Cunha and Dawson will be ready for the match.
That's a big boost, isn't it? Especially with Mathys Cunha coming back.
Of course. They are coming from injury. We need to be careful about the minutes that they can play. But we need players, and players with this quality, they're welcome.
Mathys, especially, as you mentioned, the injury, but also suspension. Just wonder how you feel he's fit into your system since you've arrived and just what you've seen on a day-to-day basis.
The conversations that we have together, he's very comfortable. He's very happy in this game, in this role in the team. It means that if he's happy, I'm happy. If he play in high level, I'm happy for him. I try to. It's not only about. Since the beginning, I said that is Wolves' game. It's not Vitor Pereira game. It's Wolves' game. It's something that they need to feel that, okay, this is the game that we want to play. This is the game that we work every day to build up.
You mentioned Mathys is very happy here. A lot of the fans are just wondering if he's any closer to signing a new contract.
Oh, I don't know. You must ask the club, not me. Huh?
But I imagine you're very hopeful, though.
He's my player, and I don't lose my sleep thinking about because the future is today.
Absolutely. You mentioned on Friday Mario was ill. Is he available for Newcastle?
Yes.
You also mentioned that he needs to decide whether he will stay or go. I just wonder, of course there'll be private conversations, but how have those conversations been with him? And what is your gut saying about what he could do this month?
This is an issue that he must solve with the club. The club, between Mario and the club. Something between them. I know what he wants. The club knows. And now they have to solve this issue, understand? And for us, what I expect from him is to be professional, to help the team, and try to solve the problem.
That was Vitor Pereira. Now, Chelsea could be busy in this transfer window. They've contacted Bayern Munich to ask about the availability of Mathys Tel. They could also be active with outgoings. Ben Chilwell is surplus to requirements, and both Carney Chukwuemeka and Renato Vega could leave as well. Dave, just first of all, Mathys Tel, where would he fit in? Because Chelsea have got a lot of players.
Yeah, they have. I think he's seen as one of the best young strikers in Europe, and we know Chelsea have targeted some of the best young players around the world since the takeover. And he can play left-hand side, he can play up front as well. I think he's got the physical presence to play up front, although when you see him play, he is lean and he is mobile. He's got good pace, which is why most of his opportunities, I think, have come from the left-hand side, breaking in or trying to break into that Bayern Munich team. His problem, I guess, is that Harry Kane is the striker, given how much Bayern spent on him. And they've got so much competition in wide areas that maybe his opportunities might be limited. Only a couple of starts in the Bundesliga this season. But last season, he was a real consistent player coming off the bench for Thomas Tuchel. But this season, his opportunities have been stunted a little bit. He signed a new contract at Bayern Munich last year. And they have shown faith in him. And when Julian Nagelsmann was there, he said he was capable of scoring 40 goals a season, like Robin Lewandowski. So they know how good a player he is. And I feel like it might be quite difficult for Chelsea to get him out of Bayern Munich at this stage. But he's a player that Chelsea have watched for a little while. So you wonder how that might develop. Maybe Bayern's interest in Christopher Nkunku might help sweeten that deal if it was to happen. And from the player's point of view, I think he is quality, and I think it'd be great to see him in the Premier League.
I think, Dan, is this the only way this happens? As Dave mentioned, Christopher Nkunku is currently the player that's almost playing back up to Nicholas Jackson, but isn't a number 9 himself. He almost needs to play off a striker, so maybe that's why Bayern Munich want Nkunku to play off someone like Harry Kane. But surely this move only works if Nkunku does actually end up leaving Chelsea.
Yeah, and Nkunku's obviously been restricted to Europa Conference League action this season. Has scored a lot of goals, but quite simply he knows that he's not going to be first choice when he's back to the Premier League, and he'll want to be playing at the highest level, not just at the Conference League. He's got Bundesliga experience as well, so I can see the appeal for Bayern Munich. And then you'd think with Tel, he's more akin to Nicholas Jackson in terms of if Jackson wasn't to play, he's going to do similar things to what Nicholas Jackson does, which may suit Chelsea in the way they're trying to move forward as well. So it could be a move that suits both teams, really. And actually, you know, obviously this show goes out on YouTube. A quick shout to Bayern Munich's YouTube channel. They post a lot of their drills of the players doing games at the end of sessions and drills at the end of sessions. And if you watch them, obviously Bayern have got some fantastic players, but Tel wins the games quite a lot of the time if you watch that. So, yeah, Chelsea fans might be interested in going to watch that on YouTube.
And the thing about, and we talked a little bit about this actually in the summer, when Chelsea are looking for a striker, they don't want to hinder the progress of Nicholas Jackson, who's done really well over the last year or so. So if they are, and they were interested, obviously, in trying to bring in Victor Osimhen in the summer, and they tried hard to get that deal done, but he would be a striker that would come in and expect to play every week. And given the progress that Jackson has made now, the players that they're trying to bring in, you don't want to hinder his progress and bring someone in who's going to take minutes away from him.
Yeah, and just quickly, James, before we go, Chilwell spent 5 years at Chelsea. Where would be the best option to him, surplus to requirements?
Well, this is mere speculation, but 2 clubs stand out. West Ham, they've got Emerson Palmieri, of course, but he's worked under Graham Potter before at Chelsea. Manchester United are in need of a fit left wing-back. We know Tyrone Malacia has missed a lot of football, so has Luke Shaw, so has Ben Chilwell, but that could be an option. The issue is 28 years of age, so he's got plenty of football left in him. Contract at Chelsea runs until summer 2027, so there's going to have to be some negotiation done to get him out of Chelsea.
Absolutely. Right, good morning. Transfers is back at the same time tomorrow morning. That's at 9 a.m. And Transfer Talk is back at the usual time of midday tomorrow. And for a full roundup of all the day's news, you can catch the Transfer Show tonight at 5 and at the earlier time of 6 p.m. Thank you to everyone today. Coming up, Arsenal's forward struggles worsens. We'll get the thoughts of Alan Smith coming up for you next.